And welcome, Petar. The floor is yours. And guys, enjoy.
Thank you, Alexander, so much. So I will skip the introduction of myself. I would like to share my screen so you can see the presentation. And I hope that you see it as well right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Perfect. So as I already said, I will skip the introduction. I will go straight to the point. So in this picture, we can see 17 white middle-aged people. They represent themselves like that. That actually signed Agile Manifesto in 2001 in February. So who are these people? Those people are actually programmers, and they're representatives of extreme programming. Some of them represented pragmatic programming. Some of them represented Scrum, design-driven development, and so on. So the guy on the bottom right, his name is Dave Thomas, and he wrote a book. Yeah, this book, Pragmatic Programmer. I don't know if you see my camera or not. However, he's famous, and he's the most popular presentation or talk that he ever had is this one, which is called Agile is Dead, from GoTo conference in 2015. And he was talking mainly against Agile nowadays. Also, he had a talk in 2014 called A Retake of Agile Manifesto with some people that also signed Agile Manifesto in 2001. The guy on the top left is Kent Beck. Yeah, I have his book as well, but I'm not going to show it. He's author of the book called Extreme Programming. He is one of the father of test-driven development approach. And yeah, after how many already, like 22 years, he's also talking not so great about Agile nowadays. Then we have Robert Martin, my favorite author and author of the books Clean Agile, Clean Architecture, Clean Code, Clean Craftsmanship, and so on. On the top right angle of my screen, you can see a screenshot of his presentation and also some kind of cartoon from his book called Clean Agile, when he's yelling to the kids who are arguing for safe, less Scrum and so on to get off his loan. And he also mentioned that nowadays Agile is total misleading of things that they thought it will happen in 2001. Also, Martin Fowler, the author of the book Refactoring, and I think that he mentioned in 2018 that he actually made this phrase refactoring, is also seeing nowadays Agile as a problem. One of the most popular presentations that he had was in 2018 in Australia when he talked about the state of Agile. And of course, Ron Jeffrey with his favorite quote that developers should abandon Agile. So why people who signed Agile Manifesto, who created Agile Manifesto, by the way, the idea to gather people was Bob Martin idea. Dave Thomas made first web page where he put all things that they agreed on in 2001. And Ken Beck was one of the guys who invited most of the people here. By the way, also they invited some women as well. However, they were not able to come, so that's why we have 17 males here. So yeah, why people who signed Agile Manifesto talk about or against Agile nowadays, and why we have presentations and talks like this, like if Agile is so good, why our products are so bad, and why we need to talk what is real value of the product. I think that the main reason is that a lot of people who are into Agile community nowadays are victims of Danny-Kruger effect, which is shown here. Although I think that some kind of workshops and certifications are really necessary, a lot of people will stop learning after they finish 1 day course or 2 days course about Scrum Mastership or product ownership or Scrum and so on. So, for example, some of them will actually read Jeff Sutherland's book or Scrum guidelines, and that's all. They will finish their learning about Agile methodologies, about Scrum methodology, about Kanban methodology, and so on. And with 2 days workshop, they will start working as a product owners. They will feel fully ready to lead some products that can cost more than $1 million. I think that this is really big problem. And because of this problem, there is a lot of studies that shows that 70% of projects fail. While 93% of the organizations use standardized project management practices, including Agile methodologies, we still can see that 70% of projects fail. And also, I would not be ready to say what is the failure of the product or of the project. If you, in my opinion, for example, start some product and after 3 months realize that this product will not hit the market because there is good competition or there is some kind of limitations or you will be way more above budget, that project, by building the product, in my opinion, is successful because you realized early that you will not succeed with the product. But in this study, they said 70% of the projects fail. So what's the definition of failure? I don't know. However, 60% of failed projects have a duration of less than 1 year, which is not so bad comparing to the opposite, which is 40% of the failed projects have duration of more than 1 year, which means that somebody will spend money and hours, let's say for a year or two, and then to fail, which is really, really big problem, in my opinion, for the product, for the team, for the companies, and so on. Also, something that I will mention in this presentation is also related to this fact, where products or projects which are with the budget of above than $1 million have 50% bigger chance to fail than the projects with a budget less than 350,000. And with this, I will start with some anti-patterns that I would like to discuss today. Some of them are anti-patterns for me. That doesn't mean that are always anti-patterns. Sometimes these things works, sometimes doesn't. It depends on the organization, it depends on the project, product, team that we will work, and a lot of other circumstances. However, in my personal opinion, I will show you 7 anti-patterns today, starting with first one, which is taking care too much about the velocity. And I will start with the work which was done by Jeff Sutherland, by the way, one of the authors of Scrum. And this work is actually published, I think, in 2013 in Hawaii International Conference. I'm pretty sure that this work was also done in 2008 or 2009. However, in the resources that I found, it's published in 2013. And in this work, they showed how Scrum can help you bring the velocity. You can see the chart on the top, bottom left angle, where showing how using Invest and how using Scrum and how using story points instead of counting days and so on, the velocity of the team increased. And here they're mentioning some team that achieved surpassed 400% better results than before. And this team was part of the company called MySpace, and it worked on the product which is called MySpace. So in 2013, a work presentation on conference about the team from MySpace company. And no matter what they did about the velocity, they built a product which failed. And we know that it failed. And we know that it failed comparing to Facebook and other social networks. So they can show us, or they can build really nice charts about like burn charts or velocity charts, counting how many story points some team did in a week, in 2 weeks, in a sprint, or so on. But doesn't matter if your product looks like this. So you can count velocity, but first of all, you need to ask yourself, why are you doing this and what's really important? As an answer on what's really important for the product, I highly recommend you to read this book, which is Lean Startup by Eric Rice, when he described the process of building the product by having the idea, build the idea, but also when publish this idea, measure it, measure everything that you did, then learn from the stuff you measured, and then build something new or rebuild, or just stop building something if you learn that it doesn't make any sense. Also, one of the best books that I read is 5 Dysfunctions of the Team by Patrick Lencioni, where he's talking about 5 dysfunctions of the team. And this will give you the answer about why are you doing, or why are you counting and measuring velocity of the team. So some product owners will measure the velocity so they can show to the leadership or C-level or clients at the end what is the prediction when they will finish some products. Some of them are measuring because they want to be sure that the team is actually working something. So let's say we know that in January, February, March, average velocity of some team was 23 story points, 25 story points, no matter what. And now, for example, it's half of that. So we can alarm and say, hey, something is not good. However, I don't think that this is a good thing to do because, as I already said, velocity doesn't matter at all. In my opinion, I think that you should work on a good team and opportunity to give and receive a feedback inside the team and so on, so team can be fully functional. And also, if we talk about clients and C-level and people who are above us as a product owners, I think that it's really important to show them that the most important thing is actually to build something that users will want. It's not important how many things you will produce. It's important to produce something that will bring you more users or more money or whatever it's your KPI. That being said, I think that study from 2016 done by Google is something that will show you what will really mean for the team and what's really important comparing to the velocity. And that's to make team be in psychological safety environment. This study showed that if team feels safe to make a mistakes and talk about them, then they will be more productive and they will stay more in a company and they will build better products, less bugs, and so on. Also about this, I highly recommend this presentation or this talk from GoTo Conference by Jess Humble, one of the authors of books called Accelerate and Continuous Delivery. He was talking about what's really important, what is value, and how velocity really doesn't make any sense if you don't know what you built. His famous quote from this presentation is that users really don't know what they want. They know what they don't want when you deliver it for them. So yeah, in my opinion, one of the anti-patterns is to take care a lot about velocity and not take care about what you're building for the users. So next anti-pattern is one of my favorite, and that's exist for nothing. This is from my experience, and I was working for the company where I faced this anti-pattern quite a lot recently. So in 2018, Martin Fowler mentioned one company which has a team of 6 developers, and those 6 developers will build some product which is used by 4 users, and they never meet. Never. So they had product owner. Actually, by his talk and his story, they changed 4 product owners in a year, and yet developers never met users, which is really fascinating in my opinion. Why it's really important? Well, if you read the book from Robert Martin about Clean Agile, you can see that he's explaining how we came to the situation to have a product owner or project manager. I will talk about this a little bit later. I want to show you one more scenario that I also faced, is that I was working on a project which was owned by one big company, which hired another company, which hired another company, and then that company hired me. So I was one of the developers at the bottom. So real client had a product owner. So the second company, which was hired by the bigger company, had a product owner. And then that company hired another company which said, oh, but we need to have a product owner as well because we are using less and you're using safe. Okay, so we will have a proxy product owner which will talk with product owner, and this product owner will talk with product owners and so on. So you can see that in this organization, there is 2 roles that clearly doesn't need to exist at all. So in my personal opinion, if you as a product owner see yourself as somebody who will listen to some other product owner and just say the exact same things to developers in your company, just think about it. Do you really need to exist? Of course, there are some products where you cannot trust others or product owner from some other company. Yeah, that's true. When maybe you want to protect your team, maybe you want to protect your company. I understand that. But in reality, in a lot of cases, you really don't need to work as a product owner on some products. There is a time when we didn't have product owners, project managers, product managers, and so on. If we take a look at the history, then we will see that programmers at start were physicists, mathematics. They worked directly for some companies, for example, for NASA or for IBM, or they worked for some car industry and so on. So they clearly knew what's going on in the company and they knew what they need to build. So they had the director of the company, they talk about this with him, and they build something for this specific product, company, and so on. At some moment, developers started organizing into separate companies, separated groups, in order to work for different clients at the same time. That was nice because they didn't have a lot of projects to do, so they can also talk with other company, understand what they need to build and then build it. But at some moment, there were so many products and projects to do and not so many developers at that moment. Also, some clients will not explain exactly what they need, so you need to talk with them a lot. Then you don't have a time to develop something, to program, and so on. At that moment, they introduced project managers in IT industry. So at some moment, we really didn't need to have it, and later we had it. However, still we have some projects and products where we can directly talk with clients and users. If we are grown enough to understand their wishes and to convert it into some product, then we really, as developers, for example, don't need project managers, product owners, and so on. I hope that in this call we have somebody from India. I thought that I saw somebody from India as an attendant. However, I was listening to some podcast in 2018. Podcast was I think called Scrum Cast by Vasco Duarda. Maybe I'm mistaken. However, one of the Scrum Masters mentioned that in India, in Hindi language, they have some word which will describe happiness of a parent which sees that his child is grown enough. So at start, parents need to take care about the child, like have you eat, did you had enough sleep, did you finish homework, and so on. As children grow up, then parents don't need to do these things anymore. At some moment, they will feel happy because their child is independent. So I think that for some teams can understand what clients and users really need and want, and they can communicate with them. They can read the informations about, for example, analytics and so on, and use it in order to build something new or to create even bigger value for the users. At that moment, if I'm product owner, I will simply say well done and let them work their job without existing in this project. So anti-pattern number 3 is a famous phrase called as a product owner I want. So I also see that some product owners use this a lot, and even this as a something user I want so that is also used quite often, sometimes not in right way. So one of the user stories that I saw recently was that product owners want to from developers to add some event log so he can see some stuff, or that there is a user stories called as a QA I want to release so I can work. In my personal opinion, it doesn't make any sense. And why it doesn't make any sense is because we forgot what's the real purpose of the user story. So I already forgot what was the year of this work. However, there is a really nice article, I mentioned it in the link below, which shows 5 types of value for some product or some task that you want to work for the user. There is a commercial value, future value, customer value, market value, and efficiency value. Ideally, when we build some new stuff for our product, we want to cover all of those values. Sometimes you will build something which will bring you only marketing value or market value or future value, or you will build something which will bring some efficiency. Not everything. Sometimes you will build something which has everything except commercial value. You're building something which will not bring you money, however, your users will be satisfied, and so on. So if we already have these 5 values and maybe even more, we cannot cover all of these by using simple and one pattern how to write user stories. Also, I really often see that people are trying to explain some technical stuffs using user story pattern. Then we need to ask ourselves what is the purpose of the user story. In my personal opinion, the purpose of the user story is to explain what user will see in our product, application, whatever. One of examples how I would like to write task, not user story, about the thing that I showed here as a product owner I want from developers to add event log is something like this. So the main purpose is to explain what I really want. Let's say that we already built something, however, we forgot to add some events in order to measure how users are reacting with our application or product, whatever. So we want to fix this. We want just, or product owner wants just this. He really doesn't need to use form of user story. He can just say this. He can text it on chat. He can write it in Jira, in Slack, in Trello, whatever. He can directly talk with developers if it's needed, for example, on planning or refactoring. Yeah. And at the end, get what he wants. Also, when we talk about QA and his task, we can just say this. There is no need to use some proper form in order to explain what we want or what QA wants. Okay, anti-pattern number 4 is think instead of the developers. And I saw this, and the idea behind this was when one of my colleagues experienced that product owners asked ChatGPT if something is possible to build. So ChatGPT made some solution which is actually not possible. However, ChatGPT will say that it's possible, and then product owners start yelling at the developer how he doesn't know to do his job. See, ChatGPT offered the solution, so you should use this. So if we take a look at the Tesla, for example, as a car, how many options driver has in order to control his vehicle? Maybe he has a pedal for acceleration, for brake. Maybe he can give a signal that he is turning left or right. He has a steering wheel to control his car, and he can, I don't know, turn on the lights and so on. So this is something that users see and user can use in a car. Is user really aware that engine of this car looks like this? I really don't think so. I was talking at the conference called DroidCon. I used the exact same slide as this. I asked people how many gears does the engine of Tesla have? And nobody gave the correct answer. The answer is 1. But do they really need to know how many gears engine has? In my opinion, no. So if product owners should take care about what users see and how user reacts with our product, do they really need to take care how this product is built at the end? In my opinion, no. This is also the opinion of Alan Holub. I really like this guy and I follow him on Twitter/X. And his opinion is that product owners should take care about user story and user value, and let the developers do their work. Let developers create an architecture, let the developers communicate between each other, let developers organize who has the best experience or the biggest experience to work on the UI, work on the connection with the internet, with the server, whatever. Therefore, this is also one of the examples that I saw in my career, that somebody is asking me through this form to delete code in line 6. I'm not joking. This was the example of things that I saw. And also, I also saw that through user stories and acceptance criteria, product owners sometimes explain to developers how to program things. In my opinion, product owners should take care about the value and let developers decide what to call, how to call it, how they will communicate between each other, how they will exchange the informations, and so on. We have Scrum Masters in Scrum organization that can help developers to communicate better, to share informations, give feedback to each other, and so on. So in conclusion, product owners, please talk about user experience and do not talk how to program it. Fifth anti-pattern is related to estimations. And I also talk about this a lot. Some of people that I saw that are in this call also had the opportunity to talk and argue with me about this. And I would like to explain my opinion on this. So let's say that we have a team and product owner in a planning where product owner explains to developers that we are using estimations by story points or t-shirt sizing or whatever, and that we are not using time because time is not precise and we cannot estimate with time. However, we can understand that some tasks are more complex than some other, and then we will use story points. So product owner asks developers how many story points is this story, for example. They will try to talk, and then they decide that this story is 5 story points, and then product owner will go and say, hey, you asked me how much time we need to finish these 5 story points. So it's 5 stories, so it's 34 story points. And then client will say, okay, I don't care about story points. How many days? When will I have this in my product? So you are converting, or product owners and developers will convert time to story points, and then product owner talking with client will convert story points to time again. One of the things that I saw so far in my career is that some product owners force people to convert days into story points in this way. Like if it's 1 or 2 days, it's 1 story point. So if we already know how many story points, how many days is some story points, why we are using story points, why we cannot directly talk in days, why we cannot directly say I need 2 days or 1 to 2 days and then 1.5 days for this. What's the purpose of using story points if you will strictly connect it with the time? And I have really important question for everybody, which is what will happen if the team gives the estimation. So let's say that we have a sprint of 2 weeks, and now we gave the estimation. We estimated that this amount of work will be finished in 2 weeks. So developers gave this estimation. What will happen if they made a mistake by saying something which is not possible to do in 2 weeks? Let's say they need 3 weeks. Or what will happen if they made mistake, which they will make for sure, that actually they need, let's say, 7 days instead of 10. So first scenario is that they made a mistake. They need 3 weeks or 4 weeks for something that they said they need 2 weeks. Option number 1 is that they will cut the quality. So they said, okay, we need to finish it in 2 weeks. Client is expecting from us to finish in 2 weeks. So what we can do, we will stop writing tests, or we will stop testing these things. So we will just program, and then we will publish it, and that's all. One of the craziest idea that I saw is that you're publishing broken code saying that you finished it. However, you're saying, okay, but we found some bugs, so we need additional time to fix these bugs. And then you're just buying time for yourself. Second option is to work overtime. So we realized that we cannot make it in 2 weeks, so we need to work additionally, let's say 10 or 11 hours a day in order to make it work. Or option 3 is that they finished early, so they can just say, okay, we finished everything. We said that we will finish in 2 weeks. What we can do, let's play Sony PlayStation. Or they can ask product owner. Product owner can say, okay, I will give you something else to do. So they will either convert Scrum to Kanban, where they're just getting new things to do, like in a list from the backlog, or they will feel pressure because they said that they need 2 weeks and actually they need more. So my question in this situation is, why are we estimating? Of course, sometimes we are estimating because we really need to know when will some amount of job be done. However, there is multiple different opinions on the backlog, and is backlog really necessary to have or not? Is it junk or not? That's on you to decide. That also depends on the product, on the project, on clients, on users, and so on. But if you're using estimations for the scenario that I already explained here, I think that maybe you should consider not to use it. Why? Because from start, I was talking about value, and I was talking that the most important thing is to bring value to the user. If you already know what's important for the user, does it really is it really important to know how many story points is that? If you always work on something that is really, really, really important, and then when they finish this by providing quality as well. By the way, people who signed the Agile Manifesto were developers. All of them wrote tests. Some of them invented test-driven development. Some of them invented design-driven development, but all of them wrote tests. Some of them invented JCoco, like a platform to be sure that all of your code is covered by tests. And yet, because of things like estimations, we decide sometimes not to write tests, which I think is wrong. Starting with anti-pattern number 6, which is start big. For this anti-pattern, I really like to reference to this talk done by Sander Hugendorn. I think that he made a joke about his surname because he has 2 object-oriented in his surname by double O. And he was talking about Gall's law, which says that complex system design from scratch will never, never, never works. And I see this quite often. Like in my current company, they tried to build a new website, which was already done in 2 weeks or 3 weeks with main things to be there. However, they said, oh, we are not ready to publish it. What if somebody see this? I want this animation here. I want this finger to move. Literally, they were arguing and postponing publishing just because some animation, when somebody has a picture of scrolling, they wanted to animate scrolling. And then they published it after I don't know how many months. However, at the end, they measured through Google Analytics that nobody is actually visiting this site. That being said, in my opinion, you should take care about Gall's law. Of course, there is an example from Jeff Sutherland's book, which talks about Sentinel, one of the most popular products by the FBI, which was postponed, over budgeted, and so on. To be finished in 16 months by using Scrum methodology. Also explains how big projects will never work and that we should always focus on small projects, small ideas, try to test it, try to measure it, and so on. If you want to also, after publishing, put some money on the marketing, my personal advice is not to do it on start. First, to have some small group of users, ask them, try to make some decisions based on this. And then when you're sure that your product will be good enough for a bigger audience, then invest into marketing. And last anti-pattern that I have for you here is be a manager. So I always want, and I will always like to mention the example of cargo cult, where in Second World War, United States built a military base in some island in, I think, Atlantic Ocean, between Atlantic and Pacific Ocean, where people who were living there never saw airplane in their life. So when United States military came, they bring some food, they bring some clothes, they bring something for people who were living in this island. But in return, they built an airport where they can land planes and also go for the military missions. After World War World War II, they left, and people who lived there were confused. What happened? So because of that, people who lived in this island created a religion and cult where they thought that they were visited by gods. Gods came with some really big birds, And if they build these birds from wood, if they build antennas from wood and whatever, then gods from the sky will see that they are here, and they will land again and bring them food and bring them clothes, and they will all be happy. So why this thing happened? This thing happened because people who lived there didn't understood the concept. And that's something that also happens to some project managers. There is a lot of companies that are trying to go through agile transformation. Those companies will try to hire project managers as product owners. So product owners will go through some kind of certification or some kind of workshops. They will work a little bit, and then they will start working as a product owners. In reality, nothing changed. They see product, they see project, they don't understand the difference, and they started managing people in their products. So I think that this is really big anti-pattern, and because of that, I really highly recommend everybody to try to understand that maybe they're victims of Danny-Kruger effect, and therefore I would argue that if you're aware that Danny-Kruger effect exists, you will force yourself to learn, you will force yourself to grow, you will force yourself to understand what's the real purpose of your role and what you need to do. In conclusion, product owners should take care about product and take care about user satisfaction, user value. Do not take care about who will work on what. Does somebody has work to do or not? In my personal opinion, I would rather, as a product owner, hire one developer who will work 1 hour a day and create value that will increase revenue in my product, than to have a team of 6, 7 developers, 8 developers, cross-functional team, which will work 8 hours a day with sprints, with perfect organization, with Scrum Master on the board, and so on, and to not bring value for the user at all. That being said, I don't have anything else to add. My name is Petar Ljubić, as already Alexander mentioned. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can write me an email if you have any questions. And of course, if you have any questions, you can ask right now.
And here we comes to a moment where you don't need to be so shy and don't need to be so quiet. This moment is pretty important for all of us because Petar is here to answer a lot of questions which he maybe didn't ask during a presentation. So maybe if you have any question to ask him, now he is available to give you an answer. So a lot of faces here I see. Please, I'm pretty sure there is a lot of questions.
So can I ask a question?
Of course you can. Here you are.
So Petar, you mentioned that, yeah, most of the people, or many people, are the victims of Henry-Kruger effect, that they think they know more about Agile than they actually do. And that when starting to deal with product or to manage a product, they finish some sort of certifications or like attend a course. So what would you recommend for a person who is working as a product owner, who is considering working as a product owner in a proper way, meaning to concentrate on the value of the product? What kind of education actually, or further education, or some, you mentioned some of the books that you read, I guess that you can recommend some of the books there, or in what direction should they structure their further learning? Because this is something that you cannot learn from like in school or at university. So what would you recommend?
So yeah, thanks, Jelena, for this question. I would mention here Naval Ravikant, which is the CEO of AngelList. and his opinion when he's trying to learn something new about some new branch of his work, or no matter what. He always says that we need to go back to the basics, which means, in my opinion, for this specific situation, I would personally recommend to people to read Extreme Programming book at start, because this approach was actually the source for Scrum. In the first book of Scrum, they said that they made extreme programming easier for managers to understand, and that was the purpose of the Scrum in the first book that Ken Schwaber wrote. That's why, in my opinion, it's really important and good to read those basic books. And after that, I would also argue that for developers, test-driven development is really important, because we can talk about agile methodologies, but in my opinion, agile methodologies cannot exist without quality. And we can do things different. We can organize our work different. However, we need to focus on the quality as well. With that in mind, I would also recommend you, I think already know the book Coaching of the Agile Teams, in order to understand how Agile teams will work. And after that, as well, I already mentioned the book Lean Startup. With all of this, you should learn that small steps are really important, and focus on the value is more important than the organization, and more important than velocity. So in conclusion, I would recommend basic books like Extreme Programming, Lean Startup, because it can teach you how to focus on the value. And yeah, that's all. Thanks again for the question.
Thank you.
Hey,
Yeah, can I
guys.
go next?
Of course, Azra.
Well, first of all, thank you, Petar, for this amazing presentation of anti-patterns. I really like it, and I like that my project, I'm not related to many of anti-patterns, but what is happening, I'm working for outsourcing company as a PO, and I have a problem that I don't have access to the end users, because they are actually end users from a client that we are developing a project for. So my question is, how to approach in this situation, how to ask about more information about end users and, I don't know, business values and what they are targeting and so on.
So that's really interesting, and thank you for this question. Really interesting question, which happened a lot to not only you, but when you're building, for example, even if you're building the application which is in-house project, for example, for for people all around the world, you still don't have an opportunity to talk with these people. But I'm not sure if you have the opportunity to build some kind of analytics. Do you have any analytic tools inside your product or not?
Unfortunately not, because it's actually industry project, so it will not be used by many users. It's a small amount of users that will bring the value, so we
I
don't have.
understand. So I would personally argue that the most important thing here, if you cannot talk directly with them, find a way to analyze the data that is going through the project, which means implementing Google Analytics on Firebase Analytics or Fluff. I forgot the name of the analytic tool, sorry. But those two are the most important thing. Because setting this kind of analytics, you will see, for example, how many users will click on some button, or will open some screen, or open some web page. I don't know what's your product at the end. And with this kind of informations, when you build new thing, you always include analytic at the same time with all things that are built new. When this release reach users, you will collect the data through the analytics and see how many of them are really using something. Therefore, you can decide whether you will drop this product or functionality feature, or you will build it even more. So in conclusion, my personal opinion that you need to find a way how to implement analytics inside it. It's really, really important in order to learn about your user.
Thank you very much for your answer.
You're welcome.
Here we have one question in chat from Jakub. Could you please write here the titles of the books?
Yes. I will do this immediately. So I mentioned Extreme Programming Explained. So the author of this book is Ken Beck, and he was one of the signers. Actually, his idea with Robert Martin was to create this group of people who will talk about methodologies and way of work. Then we have Clean Agile, written by Robert Martin in 2021, when he's going back to the basics and explaining what was the real purpose of this meeting and what problems do they have at this moment, and whether you really have some problems or you just want to be modern, like, oh, we are using Agile. Then I will write Lean Startup, book written by Eric Rice. He also had some kind of presentation and talk at Google, and I highly recommend you to take a look at this presentation. It's on YouTube when he's describing main idea behind his book. Other than that, yeah, so Lisa Atkins, Coaching of the Agile Team, Lisa Atkins. Also, I would like to have the opportunity to recommend some other books called No Estimation by Vasco Duarte. And yeah, I think that those books are really the most important in this topic.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Petar. Guys, is there anyone else who would like to ask question? I think this silence means like, okay, we just want to be closer to our weekend. So can we please right now finish this working day and go at the end of the week, which is understandable, of course. Okay, guys, in that case, that means that we are actually at the end of tonight's session. Petar, thank you very much for your time. It was very, very good to know a lot of information from your presentation and from your experience. A lot of people were here for the very first time, which is really good proof that your topic was very interesting and that your topic is kind of present in their work environment, if I can say it like that. So it was really, really bingo for tonight's session. So thank you for your time. Thank you for a beautiful presentation, and thank you for all informations you actually gave us for free. Let's say like people. So I hope that we are going to have opportunity to see you next time, guys. Petar already introduced himself, so if you want, please add him on the social networks and ask him any questions you would like to ask him. And what could I say at the very end, except I hope we are going to see each other next month. And that would be February, because on January, we are celebrating our Christmas holidays. So see you in February.
See you guys. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Petar.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.